Good morning. This is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant morning. And you caught me with my copy of Druthers and my first morning coffee. So cheers to all of you and thank you for joining me. Another gorgeous fall day out there. We've had a little bit of rain. But the article I was reading is Humanity's Crisis of Imagination. And, we can see that there is a crisis of imagination taking place because everything we look at today seems to be falling into the cookie cutter approach, as I call it. One size fits all. All of these 15-minute cities have to be designed in the same way with the same structures. And I remember when I was working on the Bob Gajan secondary plan, every province has an official and a secondary plan for settlements that are large enough. And there's about five settlements in this area that are large enough to have their own individual plan. And one of the things that were upsetting us on the committee is that they were trying to force the same plan basically on every community rather than looking into every community and seeing what those communities need. And of course, like so many things, if you disagreed, you were immediately shut down. Just today, same as today, if you talk about the green agenda and some of the logistical issues, the fires with the EVs and so on and so forth, the way that we're dealing with farmers and farming, the very people who produce our foods, when you have to shut down other ideas because you only have the one idea and the one agenda, of course we're going to run into problems because good ideas come from all over the place. But what I find interesting, like a lot of these issues, they're very big issues, and it takes a lot of people and a lot of momentum to change some of this stuff. And I don't know whether we are going to be able to change it through what they would call the regular channels, by protest or petition or that kind of thing. So I think that what we need to do, and this is just a suggestion, when I was a young man going to college in England, we had a thing called the boycott. And what we did was if we didn't like what a corporation was doing in a particular country or so on and so forth, we would boycott their products and we would try and make that a nationwide goal. And, when you actually do that, when you hit people in the pocket, all of a sudden changes happen. So people ask me, I say, well, what can I do? These situations, these things seem absolutely huge. I don't know what I can do as an individual citizen. It seems just so overwhelming. And of course, then people become hopeless because they feel that they can't actually speak up or have their voices heard, especially when they see, as I say, things that are so desperately going wrong and really need, to have some changes or some rethinking to the model, But there are things that we can do, and this is where the incremental change comes in. Okay, so for example, I bank at the credit union. I bank at a credit union because a credit union falls under different rules than banks generally do. Okay, in their charter, they have to have a certain percentage of that money is lent out to your community in the form of mortgages and small business loans. Okay, so you are benefiting the people in your community who will feed back that benefit back into your community. Another thing that I do is I pretty much do all of my shopping at thrift stores, whether it's for clothing, other used items, or for gifting, vintage stores, this kind of stuff. That means that, again, that money stays in your community. You are going to save money. You're falling into the whole idea of the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle. And of course, reuse and reduce are the two most important ones because, when you buy at a thrift store, you tend not to get a huge amount of packaging with it, so you're reducing the packaging. But when you reuse something, unlike recycling usually means you have to add more energy to what you've recycled to turn it into another product. But reusing, it's just getting more life out of the same energy that was put into that product. And these things might seem incredibly small, but this is where we have to take individual responsibility, and we have to remember that when we do this collectively, it has a huge impact on pulling your dollars out of things that you don't agree with and putting them into things that you agree with and also support your own community and your own fellows around you, and make your community a more vibrant and a more healthy place. And of course, supporting local businesses. Another thing that I do is I pay with cash as often as possible. It's not always easy to do that sometimes, like if you want to rent a car or something like that, you usually need a credit card to back that up. However, and again, I have a reloadable credit card. I put money onto my credit card, and then because sometimes you need to buy things online. But again, I'm not feeding Visa, ChargeX, or so on and so forth with interest or anything like that, because there is no interest on my card. There is a very small yearly charge for the use of the card. So it's really like having plastic cash as opposed to a system of indebtedness. So again, using cash, going with small bills. You know, I am amazed at some of the people who go into these small businesses and, you know, flip out 100 or a 50 and eat up all of their float change in the till. So being thoughtful like that to your local business people, and I always make sure I have a bunch of 5s and 10s and 20s that I can go and pay for stuff in cash directly to these people. So many of these small businesses that have point of sale transaction, electronic transaction, that costs money. They either have to pay a rental on the equipment and or possibly a percentage on the amount of money that was put through on that machine. And that, of course, soaks money out of the owner's pocket, and that money doesn't go back into the community. So there are lots of little things, but it's not something that you can really organize. You have to take that responsibility yourself. And yes, there may be a little bit more effort involved and so on and so forth. But what I always figured when I was in business in my barbershop, you know, is that when my neighbor is doing well, you know, there's a good chance that I'm doing well as well. So when a community is vibrant and healthy, and stores can operate with a profit and to earn a living, you know, so that they can again reinvest in the community, because that's what happens to that money. It recirculates within the community, and everybody benefits from that. I cannot urge you enough to consider that. Consider changing your spending habits. And yes, you know, you may have to go out of your way a little bit. Going to farmers markets is another good way of putting your money back into your community. And you can make that an outing with the kids. You know, make it a picnic day, buy some food at the farmers market, and it's usually in a park or a green area or somewhere where you can sit down and enjoy that lunch with your children, your family, take your pets. And this is how community is formed. I often see people talking about committees to try and form community and that kind of stuff. But, you know, really community is a very, very organic process of being formed. And what actually happens is that when you have a group of people living relatively close together in an area, of course there will be skills amongst those people. And when you need to do something and you search out somebody with that skill, you've made a spontaneous network connection. Okay, so you make that connection, you meet someone else there who's making that connection, and you find out that Bill down the road is selling eggs, or Jim is selling wood, lumber, firewood, whatever it is, and you've made another spontaneous network connection. And when you have enough of these overlapping network connections, that's when your community starts to form spontaneously. And believe it or not, I mean, I think that we're working towards this with the internet. As time goes by and more people have these spontaneous overlapping network connections worldwide. And I'm not talking about the Great Reset here. I'm talking about a real worldwide community where the real people, the people on the ground, the people who just want to go along to get along, to have enough money to pay the bills and some left over, and to raise their family in a peaceful, clean environment, surrounded by people who are reasonably good-natured and want to help you along on your way as you help them along their way. Now, I don't know what this worldwide community will look like, but that is how it works. You cannot organize a community. Now, once a community is organized, of course, you will have committee meetings on certain issues, on things that you want to achieve. One of the things that I think is very instrumental is having monthly meetings for networking. And this brings like-minded people together where you can meet your fellows in your community and exchange skills, exchange information, and that kind of thing. And that is incredibly important, again, for a community building. But again, so much of this stuff is spontaneous, and it comes together out of a mutual need. Okay, and these communities will form by themselves, and that, I believe, is what is going to save the planet, save the world, and save humanity. Because once you make that connection with somebody else, they're no longer the scary other over there. Okay, I don't know if you're like me, but I've made several transactions with people overseas, and all of a sudden, you're talking to a real life person, not a country group or what have you. This is another individual with actually very much more in common with you than you have not in common. And that is how you end, there's the things that we're seeing today, that there's animosity and mistrust towards other people. And so it is these incremental changes, and it's going to take a long time. I mean, it really is. I hate to say this. I've been at this. Well, I was protesting the Vietnam War and Nixon, back in the 70s, and here we are. 55 years later, still moving towards what society is going to become. And I don't think any of us really know exactly, what that's going to look like, because it's dynamic. As we move forward, things change. As you move down the trail, the trail changes, and you have to adapt to that trail somewhat. But I can assure you that total control is not the answer to a vibrant community. So if we want to change this world, if we want to change it into that vision that I have just mentioned, then we all have to take that personal responsibility of changing our habits just a little bit. And on top of all of that, you will save yourself so much money by not going the corporate route. Okay, my bank charges at Quarter Credit Union are $2 a month, regardless of how many checks I write out on that account. Okay, so that's way cheaper than one of the big commercial banks. I was paying $10 or $12 a month, and more when I had my business for a business account. So buying at thrift stores is usually cut price. I mean, you're looking at what, $20-30 for a t-shirt now. You can buy a t-shirt for $5 at a thrift store in good condition. So you're going to save yourself a bundle of money. You are going to help to turn your own community into a vibrant, active, bustling community, and you're also going to change the direction of the powers that be by forcing us to accept what they have for sale by choosing elsewhere. And you're saving the environment. If you're all those environmentalists out there, if you want to save the environment, go to thrift stores and reuse stuff, repurpose stuff. That is the way to change the world. Anyway, that's about all I've got for today. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it has inspired you to make some small changes in your life and help you to realize that you really can make a big difference. It's just, it doesn't look that way because it's not part of a big organized group. You're doing this on your own, and I can assure you, I mean, for myself too, for a long time it felt cold and lonely, like I was the only person doing this. But now that I've settled into those new habits, and I realized how important it is to make these independent decisions about your own community and your own life, especially in these inflationary times. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed that, and in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant morning, and we'll talk very, very shortly. Okay, see you now. Bye.